All right, hopefully so far so good. Let's continue building on what we're learning here. Now, in the previous exercise, we saw, of course, how we could serve up different external style sheets based on the width that the HTML document is displaying inside of. What we can do now is we can build all of the CSS into a single external style sheet rather than having multiple external style sheets. So this is kind of a way to keep ourselves organized, and it's a heck of a lot easier to manage one external style sheet rather than multiple external style sheets. And we're going to do this by taking advantage of CSS3's media queries. And you're going to see how to build your own media queries in about 10 seconds. Give me a second, though. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to my index.html document. And these media options that we set here for our external style sheets, I'm going to go and get rid of them, as a matter of fact. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull things all the way back to where you and I had started. So give me just a moment. I'm getting rid of that media attribute, and I'm going to go all the way back to styles.css. Okay, so let me just slow down here for a second because I did that kind of fast. I got rid of the 3 references to the 3 external style sheets, low, medium, and high, and I went all the way back to just a very simple CSS reference. So now what I have is link, rel equals style sheet, type equals text / CSS, href styles.css. That's it. Okay, go ahead and save up your HTML document. Okay, good stuff. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my existing external style sheets. I think what I'll do is I will use low.css. Go ahead and grab this guy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head all the way to the top of this guy, and I'm going to hit enter a whole bunch of times to create some white space. All of the rules that we have inside this guy, let's just forget about those for now. And what I'm going to do all the way at the top of this external style sheet is I'm going to go and create my 3 media queries. Okay, so here's how it's done. I'm going to type in an @ symbol, so Shift-2 on your keyboard, and then media. And this, by the way, serves the same purpose as the media HTML attribute, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in media and then screen and, very similar to what we saw in the previous exercise. And then in your brackets there, we can go ahead and set up our width. So I'm going to go min-width, : space, and I'm going to use the same values that you and I had used previously, 320 pixels. That's going to be our first guy. And then what I'm going to do is after the closing bracket, let me zoom in on my code here a little bit so you can see this a little more closely. After this closing bracket, I'm going to throw in a space, and then I'm going to throw in a pair of, I call them squiggly brackets. I don't know what you want to call these, curly brackets, whatever works for you. Okay, you'll find them there on the right-hand side of your keyboard. Let's now take this code that you and I have inserted. This is our first media query, by the way. I'm going to grab this code and copy it. And you guessed it, I'm going to paste it out 2 more times, like so. And I'm just going to go and change the widths that we've set up here. So 320, I'm going to change that to 768. And of course, the last guy, we're going to change to 1200. All right, good stuff. You can see where this is going, right? We're going to build everything into a single external style sheet. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scroll down towards the bottom of low.css where you and I have all of our CSS properties for this guy. I'm going to grab all of these rules and cut them, Control or Command X. And by the way, this text here, we can get rid of that. We don't need that. And I'm going to take all of the rules that you and I just cut, and I'm going to paste them into the low resolution media query. So in other words, the min-width 320 media query. How do I do that? I have to drop the rules into the squiggly brackets that you and I have set up for this media query. So usually what I do, by the way, is I hit enter a bunch of times on my keyboard and then paste in my CSS like so. Okay, so the media query goes media, screen, and then the width, and then the opening curly bracket or squiggly bracket, then all of the CSS rules, and then the media query closes down towards the bottom. Okay, that's the idea there. All right, now let's go and grab the other rules from our other external style sheets. I'm going to go and head to medium.css, and I'll repeat the process. I'll go and grab all of his styles, all of his rules, and I'll cut them, and then I'll head back to low. Remember where we have to paste these, right? We have to head to the medium resolution media query into his curly brackets. Hit enter a bunch of times on your keyboard like so, and then I'll go ahead and paste. Good stuff. We have one more to go, the high resolution. Let's go after him. Head over to high.css, grab all of his CSS rules and cut them, and head back to low, and then, of course, paste them into the high resolution media queries squiggly brackets. All right, good stuff. Now, give me a second here. I'm just going to get rid of some of this extra white space that we have here. So what we now have is all of the CSS rules all inside a single external style sheet, and we have our 3 media queries established, as you can see all the way down throughout our document, like so. Okay. Now, again, this is meant to be just a really quick introduction to media queries. Let's test this thing to make sure that it works. There's a couple of things that I want to do here. First of all, we can't have a file called load.css when our HTML document is looking for a file called styles.css. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take load.css, and from my file menu, I'm going to choose save as, and I'm going to save this guy into the appropriate subdirectory inside the project files folder, and I'm going to call him styles.css. Okay, that takes care of that. The other thing that I want to do is just to change it up a little bit here, I'm going to make some changes to the background colors that you and I are using. So the low resolution headers background, that was using 100% red. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change that. I'm going to grab the RGB and his 3 RGB color values, and I'm going to change that to orange, just so we can see a change inside of our web browser. I'm going to scroll down to the next instance of header. This is the medium resolutions header, and I'll grab his RGB color values, and I'll change his background color to blue. Okay, so background :space blue. Scroll down a little bit, and I'll look for the high resolution header, his background color, and I'll replace his RGB color values simply with green. Okay, good stuff. Go ahead and save up all your work. Head back to your browser and refresh Control or Command R. There's the high resolution with the green background color. I'm going to scale things down. There's the blue background color for the medium resolution. Scale things down further, and eventually I get an orange background color. So again, the example is simple, but we can see here that we have our 3 media queries functioning all inside a single external style sheet.